So I'm going to talk about the topic of speculation. Now, there's these what is considered valid knowledge in Buddhism. It's a whole thing, but speculation is not actually considered valid knowledge, and I'll get to that more. But the view that I'm taking in this Dharma talk, and that is that what matters is not whether it's speculative or not. It's whether you know that it's speculative and the ethical intention of the speculation, or perhaps the ethical direction of the speculation. Now, when we say that, speculation isn't valid knowledge, specifically, the Buddha was addressing metaphysical speculation. And I lifted this quote from a Zen center actually up in Canada. Compared to most religions today, this is an unusual stand to take. Many religions today try to explain everything by setting up views of how the universe is structured and what is the nature of human beings and their place in the universe. This leads to more views such as how the universe was created, what happens after death, or what constitutes proper relationships, and so on. However, it was these very kinds of questions that the Buddha refused to answer. So he was refusing to answer on speculative matters, as do we. So, but if we take speculation, if we sort of open up the lens of what speculation is, we could say it's a close cousin to imagination, because when you're speculating, you're imagining, right? And the Stephen Batchelor, in his creative, not conventional way, translates the second limb on the Eightfold Path as imagination. Now, of course, remember the Eightfold Path is an ethical path. So that leads us to the question about whether this imagination or this speculation is skillful, appropriate, or helpful, or harmful. You can imagine all of the, well, I shouldn't say all of, but I did, so I'll go on. The mass, murders and all of the, the horrible things that have been happening in that way, they imagined it first. It didn't just like happen. They had to imagine it. They had to get the means, etc. That is the kind of, that is not ethical, obviously. It's an extreme example. But truthfully, in our lives, much of it is not so black and white as that. So, quoting from Stephen Batchelor, imagination is the ability to go beyond our reactive patterns and socially impose norms to envision different possibilities and outcomes which are more skillful and mindful. Imagination is thus an essential component of the Dharmic path. And Stephen Batchelor also brought creativity, which is closely aligned with imagination, as part of the Dharmic path, while in a more monastic world, creativity is not part of it. However, in reflective meditation, we really do support that and teach to that. So back to speculation. It's inevitable. When we don't have information, we're going to fill it in. We're going to fill it in with our guess, with our best guesses, with what maybe they're not our best guesses, but with our guesses. And again, my point in this talk is that's not the problem. The problem is to really know that you're guessing and to know how that functions. So I'm going to use a couple of examples here. So a couple of years ago, I got this brightly colored raincoat. There's a fun story that goes with it, but it would take too long to tell all my stories. So instead, I'll just say that for the first year I had this raincoat, nobody had anything to say about it, which is fine. You go around, you don't expect people to talk about your raincoat. But then in this last year, this rainy season up here in Oregon, it feels like everybody's saying, "Oh, I love your coat. Oh, that's a great coat." I mean, everybody. I walk into stores, the cashier is saying it. And so suddenly I go like, what is going on with this coat? what's going on with these people? Like, why is this different than last year? So I had actually no speculations about it. I was just super curious. And but I mentioned it to a friend of mine, and he said, "Oh, well, oh," because he said as soon as he saw me, I don't see him often. He said, "Oh, I love your coat." And I go, "Okay, like what's going on? Why are you doing this?" And he said, "Well, I think people are doing it because they're looking for bright spots, because our world is pretty dismal in many ways." I like that speculation. So now I'm telling you that speculation. I liked it. I don't know if that's why people, when I go into the grocery store, are liking my coat, and I'm sure there's many reasons, but I feel like that speculation functions well. It goes in a positive direction. Yes, let us look for the bright spots. Yes, even if it's only my raincoat. Good, it's right there. And then I have another story that's from when my mom was alive. She's been dead over 20 years. But she used to speculate a lot. We'd be hanging out in some public space, and she'd speculate about the people or strangers, people that she knew so little about. And it annoyed me, and I let her know. And so she told me that for her, it was a form of play. And she didn't have a lot of she lived alone for 30 years. She didn't have a lot of social interaction, and she was an old person. Probably she didn't have a lot of ways of being creative in other ways. It was her form of creativity, and it did no harm. She never said to people her speculations. It was just a play of her mind. And so sorry, Mom, that I was pretty black and white about your speculation back then. But just a couple of examples. So in contrast, inference is considered valid knowledge. So that is the process of gaining knowledge about something which is not directly perceived by the senses, but by using logical research based on a recognizable connection between a sign. Now, I took that from Wikipedia, and the example they used is eerily appropriate because they used the example of, like, when there's smoke, it indicates that there's fire. So basically, essentially allowing one to deduce a conclusion based on observed evidence, okay? So speculation is a problem in many ways. Like I said, metaphysical speculation is a problem because it sets up all kinds of authorities, and this is what is going to happen after death, even though I don't know how anyone knows really. But, it's a way people really set up authority, and there's all kinds of other things that can wind out from that. And some speculation box people in, right? I'd say that most prejudice is full of speculation. So speculation can really be problematic. So in conclusion to my thinkings this morning about speculation, because truthfully, I never really, I appreciate the opportunity in writing this Dharma talk to think through my views about speculation more fully. But I came up with what I thought was a wholesome process about speculation. Now, mind you, this is just, hot off the press. So, there's probably more to it. Though I think that my 2 points are good points. The first one is just know when you're speculating. Know that you're guessing. Know that it might be valid, but it might be invalid. It's really only a guess based on possibilities. But just know that. And then maybe discern, this is the second part, discern, is this guess, is this speculation, is this helpful or harmful, or more likely a bit of both, really, but how does it function? Like I said, I felt like the speculation that my friend did about my coat functioned well. Okay, good. I'm gonna go look around for other bright spots too. In fact, that's what I'm doing. So it's a good thing. That's what it is, but it certainly doesn't hurt anyone. In fact, well, it used to be between me and him, but now I'm telling people, so whatever. But really, then what happens? What do we do with this speculation? Do we speak about it? How do we speak about it? Do we act out of it? How do we act out of it? Now, that kind of discernment, that takes time. And again, perhaps this is a good time. Just pause when you know you're speculating and see, what do you want to do with this speculation, if anything? Maybe just write it down in your journal when you meditate and know it for what it is. So that is where I will end my talk for this morning.